So far I've been giving mostly historical proofs of the Swiss being responsible for wars and crimes against humanity, and actual facts and video footage concerning Switzerland's violence, organized terror and hatred towards immigrants and other races. But there exists also scientific proofs that the Swiss are an entirely different species, nowhere else to be found in Europe. And I told you so. They are no Europeans, and Switzerland is the base of Pharaoh. Me personally have never witnessed so much evil, so many organized lies of such utterly mean intensity as in Switzerland. And this is what makes people out, what they have in their heads. And let me tell you, what the Swiss have in their heads is so very different from the rest of humanity, that I might call their inhibitions alien, in maybe more than one sense of the word. And the things we have in our minds are being confined by the skull, as in skull and bones, you might say. It's also the form and size of the skull that defines the size of the brain and its intellectual capacity, and even tendency for crimes can thus be predicted. And this is why Freemasons, who came out of the Templars who founded Switzerland, present the skull with square and compass for craniometry, because they know their skull and bones, I repeat, skull and bones, are different from ours. And this science of the human skull is called craniometry or cephalometry. And it has been discovered by science, doctors and professors, that the Swiss have skulls nowhere else to be found in Europe, thus maybe leading to the entirely different Swiss universe, highly predestined for organized crime. So in this scientific research by Dr. Ripley from America, it shows a cephalic index of Europe and of the world, which I'm going to show you later. And I'll put the link in the description, as I always do, so you can verify and examine the scientific analysis of the craniometrical map of Europe yourselves. And you can see by this craniometry that the Swiss are neither Germans, French or Italians, because Europeans don't fit these cranial characteristics. This is another species, either talking German, French or Italian. And there's even an official name for the Swiss skull called brachycephalic. Cephalic meaning concerning the skull, which is being seen from above, a relatively short and quite round skull, whereas the rest of the Europeans, seen from the top, have long skulls and not round, called dolichocephalic. So this one here, and I'm going to show you this on the cephalic map of Europe in a moment. This is the Swiss brachycephalic skull form, which is only be found in Switzerland in Europe. You're going to see that. This is European, the dolichocephalic or long skulls. So long as being seen from the top, long from here to here. And this is quite short and broader, like here in the back. Well, we've seen aliens like this, haven't we? This is going deep, folks. You better copy it first, download it, because I've got a feeling the Swiss are going to delete it very, very quickly. And then it's gone. So here's a cephalic map, cephalic index of Europe. And here where it's black, you know, it's like a cancer in the middle of Europe, and it is a cancer. There's a high concentration of, for Europe, alien skull forms. Alien as they don't belong to Europe. You can see that. They're not here. They're not here. Not even in the south. A little bit in Italy. You know, well, here's Rome. But here's a very high concentration. It says they're not from here. You can see it. No. Definitely not. The cephalic map of Europe shows a neat distinction starting right at the Swiss border, where on both sides of the border around Switzerland the people have entirely different skulls, exactly showing that in Switzerland there's an entirely different species with different skulls and what's inside these skulls. So you can read it again here of the cephalic index of Europe. Where it's black, it means they're broad skulls and they're not European. So here, this here is Switzerland here. These are the borders. Here's France, Germany, Vorarlberg, where they are Swiss. So you can see it stops right neat at the border, you know, here in France and here in Switzerland. They have a completely different skull form. It's like chopped off, you know, neat, clean cut at the border. Here. So, and these parts are Alsace here, where they replaced the original population. As I told you, they're ethnic Swiss here, as in the north of Italy here, and in Austria, Vorarlberg. I'm a bit surprised it doesn't show black here in the south of Germany. Very surprised. But it is dark anyway. It's not like here, like the rest of Europe is white, long skulls. So here's, it's like a cancer in the middle of Europe. And they behave like a cancer. They are the cancer of Europe. So, well, except for those regions of what I told you, the ethnic Swiss are living, where Swissy replaced the original inhabitants during the 30-Year War, when Swiss mercenaries perpetrated a total genocide on the original inhabitants of Alsace in eastern France, Vorarlberg in Austria, they call them the Xieberger, because they talk like in Switzerland, northern Italy and southern Germany, where they speak in fact Alemannic Swiss German today, and want to create that great Swiss empire, including that ethnic Swiss buffer zone, of which I've already told you all in some of my previous films. So here are the irrefutable scientific proofs of all I told you before, which even scientific craniometry double backs up. So if we look at the cephalic index of the world, you can clearly see that this is the place where the Swiss come from. Here. Mongolians, Genghis Khan. And they got their little concentration here in the middle of Europe, in the Alps. From a place called also Khazaria, the Khazars. This is where the Khazars went to in the middle of our beautiful Europe and destroying it bit by bit. And when I translate Khazar in Demotic Pharaonic, there's Ka, the living soul, and Sa, the king or pharaoh. So Khazar means soul king. Well, these black dudes were like that, who think that the pharaohs were black, the soul kings. Meaning that these royal bloodline of pharaoh is there. Their souls of kings are there. And they went to Switzerland, the base of all evil, where the Khazars went to, and the Mongolians, and who are in fact of pharaonic origin. I mean, how could the Mongolians organize anyway? They never with Genghis Khan in such a way, you know, that they're completely incapable by themselves to organize in such a way Genghis Khan did. So they must have had another brain behind it, you know, and that's pharaonic. And they also went to different places in the world, like Khazaria and Mongolia. So this is concerning the skulls, and this is very scientific. This is where the Swiss come from. This is why they don't want to belong to the European community. And I tell you, they rule over the European community with their Templars. So the skull formed because they mixed with the Mongolians, the Swiss did, concerning the craniometry. I mean, it's there. These are solid proofs, eh? They're very, very solid. This is where they come from. This is where they came from. This is the original Swaziland. They're not European. It's a cancer, a black cancer. You can see that, a black cancer in the middle of our Europe, bringing 2 world wars, a 30-year war, killing everybody, etc., etc. And I tell you, I know how they are. They are no Europeans. I've never experienced something alike. So here again in Wikipedia about craniometry here. If I scroll down, this is quite interesting. Some of you racists might like this, but I tell you it's wrong. So here it talks about the Jews and brachycephalic. So yeah. So the only ones having the same skulls are the Jews. So the Swiss in fact have Jew skulls of the brachycephalic order. Now, how come the Swiss and the Jews share the same cephalometry? Whereas the Swiss have always terrorized and chased the Jews, forcing them to live in the 2 villages of Endingen and Lengnau, which I've already shown you in my other video, right at the German border, only forcing them to wear the yellow Jew hat in the Middle Ages and other Nazi-like Swiss measures. Well, why? Well, this is the pharaonic link. So I filmed it in this video here 2 years ago when I went filming in those 2 Jew villages, Lengnau and Endingen, and the Jews finally disappeared entirely from Switzerland as they were completely terrorized. So in spite of the fact they have the same skull form, they don't have the same thing in their heads. And this is what the Swiss forced them to wear in the Middle Ages, this round yellow thing, like the yellow star, and a yellow Jew hat. So they finally got fed up with it and left. But why do they have the same skull form? Oh, I'm going to explain that to you now. The Jews were 410 years prisoner of Pharaoh, had their women raped by Pharaoh, and the Swiss had their women raped by the aristocracy through the prime noctis, or the Lord's first rite, or also you might say the first night, thus massively spreading Pharaoh's genetics in Pharaoh's base, Switzerland, and they were raised by Pharaoh, as I've already told you so. So here's another particularity of the Swiss craniometry. It says alpine. This is the alpine skull form, which is brachycephalic. But if you look at the rear of the head, there's another difference. This is Nordic, you know, this is bump here, or Mediterranean, it's the same, or Atlantic. Here's nothing, it just goes straight over into the neck, you know. Which is the same in the East Baltic, where you go to the Khazar region. So it's only alpine in central Western Europe. It's only alpine having this, together with the brachycephalic skull form. You know, you remember the black cancer in the middle of Europe. So nowhere else this particular brachycephalic head form can be found in Europe, except Switzerland and the ethnic Swiss parts. The Swiss are definitely not what we think they are. They are no real Europeans, and maybe even something completely else. As I've witnessed on many occasions in Switzerland, that they seem to understand each other without talking and just through the look of an eye. They always seem to stare at people as if they see right through and detect something they don't like. And there are many things they don't like in Switzerland, on which they use their laws of silence, organizing through some creepy look of the eye among themselves. The biggest races in the world are in fact illegal immigrants themselves in our Europe, hiding on top of the mountain with all their looted gold and their Swiss short heads. Alan Dulles is the man behind the CIA and considered to be the one who founded the Central Intelligence Agency. And he not only lived in Bern, Switzerland for many years, but he's also of Swiss descent of the patrician Mallet family of Geneva, the gene of Eve, Geneva. And here you can see the cloak and dagger and the Swiss laws of silence smiling through their teeth. Now this is very interesting. It's the EIR, the Executive Intelligence Review from July 5th, 1983. And if I scroll it down, I do it slowly so you can punch pause and read the whole thing yourselves. There's a lot more in it, you know, I just show you a couple of things. Only the things here concerning Alan Dulles in Switzerland. And I put it anyway. I put it in the links for you in the description underneath the video, so you can all look it up yourself. And here it says Alan Dulles. He arrived in Switzerland in 1942, and he was there in 1917, meeting with Lenin. He was friends with Lenin. You see, the guy who killed all the Russians. And only the poor Russians, the people, you know, the army deserters and farmers. He was together in bed with Nazi supporters, and so this is, you know, Octagon, Swiss, the Swiss Huns. And here he was he represented IG Farben. I'll come back to that later. He was in bed with all the Nazis, this guy here, who became the first, you know, civil director of the CIA. Yeah, here it says Dulles, whose family was related to the Geneva patrician family of the Mallet, had been with brother John Foster. So he's Swiss. His ancestors are Swiss. They're all Swiss. Every time it's Swiss, Swiss, Swiss. The Huns have taken over with their broad skulls, non-European. So you can read the whole article. So this is the Executive Intelligence Report. So here it says too in another book, I put it all in the links for you, that the Geneva headquarters of the CIA and the OSS was run by the Mallet-Prévost family, whose descendants include Alan Dulles of the CIA. There you go. CIA is Swiss. They took the head of it and they let only Swissies in on all key positions. Here's some more. In 1921, Alan Dulles was posted to Bern, Switzerland, by his uncle Secretary Lansing, where he took over the role of Chief of Intelligence in the American legation. In Switzerland, Dulles was met by his cousins, you know, they're all cousins, members of the Mallet family. Dulles' uncle, Petit Dulles, had married the Swiss-American Julien Mallet-Prévost. Both the Prévost and the Mallets were uniquely powerful families in international politics and finance, holding hereditary seats in the Council of 200, ruling Geneva, Switzerland. This group, with the British royals, formed a joint committee of spy masters working for the aristocracy that went back to at least the 18th century. The Mallet-Prévost were also responsible for injecting the Scottish Rite of Masonry into the United States. By the mid-1920s, Dulles, his name was not Dulles, but Dulles, was tapped to be the first secretary of the American embassy in Berlin. Dulles was also a director of the Schroeder Bank, well that's Schroeder, that handled Hitler's personal funds. In June 1920, American Army Captain Truman Smith was brought into the Berlin mission as a military observer. In 1922, after Mussolini, in the pay of British intelligence, had taken over Italy, etc., etc. Well, this guy is Swiss, you know, and they're not French, you know, these names are French, but they have all brachycephalic Huns heads, from Geneva all the way up to Basel, all the way down again to Tessin. They're not Italian, French or German. They are a completely different species, as I already told you, and they're everywhere. They have taken over all key positions. And here's some more. Here it says how they are. I just can't see that. So Alan Dulles in the CIA, its Office of Scientific Intelligence, positioned to research mind manipulation and the use of drugs in such matters. Even though the CIA was clearly behind many of the mind control programs, you know, like the Monarch and the MK Ultra, and just remember the latest attack on a beach. It's also connected again to Switzerland. See my films about how they manipulated how they provoked the Tunisians by throwing down their national hero, you know, and it came out 6 days before the attacks, and this guy was on drugs again, just like the Germans with the amphetamines, and every time it's drugs, and you know, Switzerland. And here in the same time, during the war, there was a British ambassador, yeah, well, probably to Switzerland, and his name was here, British Ambassador Victor Mallet, of the same family of the CIA Dulles. It's all Switzerland, Switzerland, Switzerland. Swiss, Swiss, Swiss. Alan Dulles, or I'd rather say Alain Dulles, he was a lawyer, as many of these men on powerful positions usually are. And he worked already at the US Embassy in Bern in 1917, where he got friends with Vladimir Lenin, who also spent many, many years in Switzerland before they let him loose on the Russian people, killing millions during the Red Terror, mostly murdering Russian peasants and army deserters. These good Russian men opposed to war and against those pharaonic tsars from Tsar, meaning a king, and demotic pharaonic as in a tsar, coffages, a box to put the king in when he's dead. So here you can see the house where Lenin lived in Bern, which is in the Seidenweg 8, number 8. And this is where Alan Dulles came in all the time, you know, as he was living just around the corner in the Herrengasse, number 23. I could have gone and have a, you know, videotape it all for you, because this houses still exist. But as I can't go out of the door, you know, I haven't been out for weeks now, because of the Swiss terror and their police lying things together and all that. Well, you know about that. So here's the entire article. I can scroll it down here for you, and I'll put in the links for you anyway. So, well, I put the rest in the links. So Lenin and Dulles, you know, they were friends, seeing each other all the time, having a beer in Bern, Switzerland. Switzerland, Switzerland, Switzerland. Then, during World War II, Alan Dulles lived in the Herrengasse 23 in Bern, Switzerland, just around the corner from Mr. Lenin. Being the Swiss director of the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, again SS in it, as most of his pals were, and predecessor of the CIA, where he had mostly Nazi friends from Octagon and meeting many German Nazi officers. And it was of course also the OSS and Alan Dulles of the Swiss, you know, like this, you know, the Swiss Red Cross and all that. that had all these guys come to the US, you know, and give them a post to this in the CIA. They all came into the CIA. All these. This is what happened. Alan Dulles, Switzerland, with their broad skulls, non-European. So this is, yeah, Alan Dulles on Wikipedia. There he is. He looks so innocent, you know, as the Swiss always do. But oh dear, be careful. So here, I scroll down here, early career. Yeah, early career. So, and as a lawyer, he also worked for the Schröder Bank and represented IG Farben in America. The ones who produced Zyklon B to eliminate all the Jews and their children, of which Swissy, Alan Dulles, was part of the whole genocidal construction by the Huns of the Alps, with their Central Asian brachycephalic head forms and non-European Hun skulls. Every time Switzerland is involved in all these crimes against humanity, and they occupy all key positions, every time Switzerland, Switzerland, Switzerland. So here it says Zyklon B. There you go. He also handled IG Farben's litigation up until 1942. IG Farben was a large company in Nazi Germany, notorious known for producing Zyklon B gas used to kill Jews in the concentration camps. So, I mean, what is this so-called American doing for a Nazi company producing poisons for a genocide? Well, he was not American, he was Swiss, it was Malay. And the Swiss were on both sides, you know, in the US, in England, and of course they financed the Nazis and all that. And they got filthy, filthy rich. Here it says Herrengasse 23. That's where he lived. Just around the corner from, well, there's a lot from Lenin. So there's a lot more to read here. I'll put in the links for you as well. There you go, another Swissy who got through the Operation Paperclip, got them all into the US. That's what I've been telling you. All these black people being randomly shut down today in America's street. Well, it's Octagon. There are 1 million Swiss Americans actually at the moment in the US, and they've taken over all key positions. And they're going to do the same thing as they've done in Nazi Germany to the Germans. And you could see by the head forms the Germans are not the same. I'll put the link of this article of a guy who's living in, an American living in Switzerland, and apparently he read my, he saw my videos as well. So I put the entire link in the descriptions, so you can read yourself the 10 reasons why Switzerland is home to the CIA. Well, at least the 10 reasons of this American guy in Zurich, who's not so fond of Switzerland either, apparently. And I told you so in one of my previous films that it has been deleted now. The title of my film was Octagon Rules Over Pentagon. And it's so true, it's 100% true, that Octagon rules over Pentagon. Then, after the war, which was a great success for the Swiss and their Alan Dulles, he became the first civil director of the CIA from 1953 to 1961. Swissy had the head of the CIA on the Swiss sleeper agent Eisenhower, and with Swiss gay Edgar on top of the FBI, Swissy everywhere, and bye-bye America. So you can understand that Swiss Alan Dulles only lets Swissies in on all CIA's key positions. Same for the FBI and under Eisenhower. That's why Alan Dulles' brother, John Foster Dulles, becoming Secretary of State during the Eisenhower administration. The Huns on all key positions now. Well, let's have the Cold War really start now and bomb the hell out of the North Koreans and the Vietnamese using biological warfare and on both peoples like Agent Orange. While showing the sound of money, the sound of music, and picture of that clean and innocent Alps to the American public. while the Huns taking over the Perhet, the real demotic name of the White House. So here you can see Alan Dulles with his lovely, innocent Swiss smile, together with JFK. Well, he was thinking something else, didn't he now, eh? Like here, title of a book here. Well, I didn't read it, but I know what happened. And it was John F. Kennedy who finally fired Alan Dulles and had to pay the ultimate price with all Octagon's men and all military and intelligence key positions. For the Huns a piece of cake to wipe him out and cover it up with Alan Dulles in the Warren Commission and back in the saddle, riding the United States of America. The biggest Jew killer of all times was an ethnic Swiss by the name of SS Sturmbannführer Christian Wirth, nicknamed Christian the Terrible, who was the chief inspector of Operation Reinhard, or Aktion Reinhard, named after SS Obergruppenführer General Reinhard Heydrich, the Nazi High Commissioner of Bohemia and Moravia in Eastern Europe, and head of the Gestapo, the German secret state police, with the Octagon badge. So here is the Gestapo Octagon badge of the Swiss Nazi Templars. You see, it's octagonal. It's all police, secret services, military, it's all Octagon, the military wing of the Swiss Nazi Templars, or Pharaoh actually. So here you can see him with his wife, Reinhard Heydrich, the one Operation Reinhard was called after. And Heydrich's wife, Lina Mathilde von Osten, was a member of the aristocracy. And as in all humanities wars, the aristocracy and Pharaoh's descendants have ordered all wars for the horrors matrix, including World War II, where the aristocracy was deeply involved to organize the manslaughter with the help of Swiss collaboration of the Octagon. So here it says, Lina Mathilde Heydrich von Osten, the daughter of a minor German aristocrat, etc., etc. Together with the Swiss, they always have the fingers in it. So, see, a little castle here. Well, charming, isn't it? Operation Reinhard was financed by the Swiss with 1 million Swiss francs and took place from October 1941 to November 1943. And the operation was confirmed during the Wannsee Conference on January 20th, 1942. So the Operation Reinhard started a few months after the Barbarossa attack on Russia of June 22nd, 1941, which was financed by Switzerland with 1 billion Swiss francs. And so was, of course, then the Operation Reinhard, the murder on all the Jews. So this is a Swiss border control here. It says, as Mr. Hitler, he guaranteed the Swiss neutrality of 1937. I put it through the Google translator now, and this is on the German television, WDR, Westdeutscher Rundfunk. So this is not just anything, you know. This is official. You can read it all yourself. Like here it says, so Hitler got in 1941 1 billion Swiss francs for the Russia campaign and the murder of all the Jews through the Operation Reinhard executed by the Swiss Christian the Terrible, Christian Wirth, an ethnic Swiss. I'll put it in the descriptions for you. So this is quite recent, 2012. The Swiss are the ones behind World War II, together with the aristocracy. Swissy Christian the Terrible was born in Oberbalzheim in Baden-Württemberg, in the south of Germany, next to the Swiss border, near to Günzburg, where Dr. Mengele was from, and near to where Julius Streicher was from. And all these men were ethnic Swiss, as I've shown you in my other films. So here you can see it. Here we click on, this is where he's from, Oberbalzheim. And actually here it says his nickname was Christian the Terrible, the Wild Christian, Operation Reinhard, Action T4, and he was the first commandant of the Belzec extermination camp. Charming fella, this Swissy. He looks a bit like the neighbor who just aggressed me. That was yesterday. I just got aggressed by some Swiss Nazi neighbor. I videotaped him. So here, Oberbalzheim. He was born about 4 years before Mr. Hitler was born. He was born in 1889. So, from the same era. So here we see Oberbalzheim here, also in Wikipedia. Excuse me. Here it says Balzheim or Oberbalzheim, and here's Switzerland, here's the border. And this is all part of the Swiss buffer zone, which I'll explain to you one more time in a minute. Yeah, Baden-Württemberg, these are the Alemannic people. They are basically Swiss, you know. And here was Günzburg, Dr. Mengele, here was Julius Streicher, Himmler, no, here was Mr. Himmler. They all came from the south of Germany, and if they came from the north, you know, that's the Teutonic Knights link, who are also Swiss Germans, who after the Templars founded Switzerland. So just look my film, the Teutonic Knights, Deutsch Ritter an. In fact, every single high-placed Nazi was either Swiss, as the Reichshealth Minister, SS Obergruppenführer Dr. Leonardo Conti, and the boss of Operation T4, Tiergarten 4, SS Standartenführer Karl Jäger, the head of the murderers Einsatzgruppen, born in Schaffhausen, Dr. Ernst Rüden, Hitler's mastermind, born in St. Gallen, and the boss, and also Christian Wirth, his boss on the medical level, like Heinrich Himmler, the military boss of all the concentration camps as head of the SS, and also an ethnic Swiss. And also Hitler, a Swiss sleeper agent, was financed by the Swiss and the Swiss general Ulrich Wille, etc., etc. I documented quite a few of these guys in this video here, Auschwitz made in Switzerland, on this channel Gure. It says the Swiss in the service of the SS, and they were all Swiss. The Second World War, the Nazis, the genocide, also the genocide of Europe. You know, Europe is like gone afterwards, you know. It was all a Swiss operation. They organized it, they financed it, they protected the Nazis after the war, etc. Just go and watch this video. You can see it on Google Maps. Here's Günzburg, Mengele, Julius Streicher is also from around here. I showed it in another video. Switzerland financed the Shoah. And here's Balzheim, the Christian the Terrible. In Switzerland, it's very, very near to Switzerland, which you can see here in the bigger picture. So here was yeah. So here's Zurich, here's Switzerland, here's Oberbalzheim, here's Günzburg, and this is all, they are ethnic Swiss all around here. They are practically Swiss, they are Swiss. All these bad, evil Nazis, the head of them, they were all Swiss, believe me. So all these high-ranked Nazi criminals, they were all Swiss, including Christian the Terrible, here the biggest Jew killer of all times, with the lives of around 2 million men, women and children on his account. And here it says Christian Wert was assigned to Hartheim, and I'll show you what Hartheim is. So here's Hartheim, again a castle, so it's again the aristocracy. In all these euthanasia centers, as they call it here, of the Action T4, Tiergarten 4, they did a lot of these things in ancient castles. And there was another one where Christian Wert also worked. And the head of it all was the Swiss health Reichsminister Dr. Leonardo Conte, called the Swiss Sadist. So the Swiss Sadist, together with Christian the Terrible, there was the infernal Swiss duo, and together with many, many other Swiss. So here Christian the Terrible in Wikipedia, where they you know, here in Baden-Württemberg, Oberbalzheim, next to the here, next to the Swiss border, and Aktion T4, Aktion Reinhard. So in here there are some SS men, witnesses, you know, giving their testimonies, and this one is Franz Suchomel. So here's his witness account, and he's saying in his testimony, SS Unterscharführer Franz Suchomel said about Wert, "From my activity in the camps of Treblinka and Sobibor, I remember that Wert in brutality, meanness and ruthlessness could not be surpassed." Oh, that's typical Swiss, eh? We therefore called him Christian the Terrible, or Wild Christian, and the Ukrainian guardsmen called him Stuka, the German Nazi war bomber. The brutality of Wert was so great that I personally see it as a perversity. You know, even the Germans are shocked by this Swissy. I remember particularly that on each occasion Wert lashed Ukrainian guardsmen with the whip. If only someone had had the courage to kill Christian Wert, then Aktion Reinhard would have collapsed. Berlin would not have found another man with such energy for evil and nastiness. First, the witness account of an SS corporal named Franz Suchomel, and filmed by a French team in the 70s, and he was from the he was an SS guard from the concentration death camp Sobibor and Treblinka, where Swissy Wert came all the time. He says that Wert had built the death camp, and Wert he was practically all over as the chief inspector of all the death camps. And he was the first concentration camp commandant of the Belzec extermination camp. So here we can see that even the German SS were shocked and appalled by Wert's cruelty. because only a Swiss and a Horus product of the Sisters of Isis can be so inhumane sadistic. It's completely schizophrenic that the children and the wives of those sadist SS camp commandants always say, "Oh, my daddy was so sweet with us." This means that the wife at home and sister of Isis had total control over the beast, because they have done something terrible with him as a child or baby, to make him so and split his personality. The famous child psychologist Alice Miller said that Switzerland is one of the most dangerous places for a child, and she's right about that. Alice Miller describes the laws of silence in Switzerland, of which I've been telling you. So there it is, of that same book I just showed you. And she's also talking about Switzerland because she lived in Switzerland. She wasn't Swiss, she was Polish, and she got very well known in the US. So here she's talking about Switzerland, yeah. And she's also talking about the camp commandant Nazi war criminals, and but she didn't know that they were all Swiss, and she was so near. Yeah. So I hope to add that to the yeah. And there's really the laws of silence in Switzerland here, you know, on crimes against children, you know, to split their personality so the Sisters of Isis can use them. Yeah, it says all the atrocities going on here in Switzerland. And a Swiss, of course, would never write it, you know. And if there is a Swiss who would write it, you know, you go into prison, because these laws of silence are not to be broken. Well, and later on she went to France. It says it's talking about Adolf Hitler as well, you know, and yeah, Switzerland. And here's he's saying it again. Why did almost all the journals to whom these devastating reports were sent, journals whose main concern is with society, choose to respond with silence? Who is protecting whom and from what? She's asking these questions, right? Well, I've got the answer for you. Why shouldn't the Swiss public be informed that in its fair land countless children are being subjected to a lonely martyrdom? What's achieved by silence? So this, you know, etc., etc. So this lady who's supposed to give off answers as being a child psychologist, she can't give these answers. And this is very honest, actually. This is very honest of her. So I'm giving you the answers here and in my other videos. And this is also the reason for which the Swiss, they had children slaves until 1989. Die Verdingkinder, or the contract kids. There are a couple of films about it. And they had eugenics programs until 1996, just around the corner from where we are, where they sterilized young people by force. It's almost in until the 21st century, and it's still going on today, all these things here. Because the Swiss, you know, and these children slaves, the Verdingkinder, they were broken. They broke them, they raped them, they beat them to death, they starved them to death. They were beaten all the time, and so this is a way, you know, to split their personalities, because the Swiss and the Sisters of Isis, they always have to have an amount of split personalities to make their Nazi war criminals have them ready. And they're still doing it, you know, today. And so this honest woman, Alice Miller, a very famous child psychologist living in Switzerland, she's asking all these questions here. And So I'm giving the answer now here. And she's also, you know, on the track of analyzing the young lives and when they were still children of all these schizophrenic camp commandants, whose children and wives say, well, my daddy was such a nice man, you know, that's completely schizophrenic. And this means in their youth, when they were a baby, the sisters of ISIS, they split their personality. And this is what they do actually with the MK Ultra or the artichoke program of brainwashing. Somebody is tortured, you know, and like tied upon on a bench. Of course it hurts a lot, so you want to escape, you want to run. But you can't run because you're tied up like Jesus on a cross. So you escape in your mind, you know, and a whole new a personality is being opened. And so this is how they split these personalities. And the old personality, the original personality, is completely put aside. It pops up, you know, like with these schizophrenic camp commandants, or my Swiss policeman, the Hans Kühni, another schizophrenic psychopath, you know, and a product of the Sisters of ISIS, of whom I'm not allowed to talk, you know. They say, well, you go to prison if you talk about this guy. So these are the walls of silence, the laws of silence of Switzerland, of which also Alice Miller is talking here about, and what you can all witness here in the absolute Swiss terror on me and my family. This is the center of evil, folks. It really is. So, dear, very much respected Alice Miller, you were absolutely on the right track. And I just answered some of your questions, and I do so here in my videos. And so maybe you got some followers who can see this, and we have to do something about this evil. We have to stop it. One of the instruments to split a child's mind is, of course, Ritalin. Here it is, which is very much abused in Switzerland, and well, I just told you the reason why. So they can be productive, obedient servants for the Sisters of ISIS in the coming crimes against humanity. Believe me, it's all Swiss-led. Even Alice Miller had her doubts, you know, she was on the path, on the right track. I mean, how else can a witch kill a man who's naturally much stronger than she is? Well, either with poison to play the men, or to play the men out against each other, or have her own personal schizophrenic little Nazi monster to perform at her will. Just as that violent Swiss cop Hans Kühni, who was so sweet at home, but on the job aggressing people like me and my family, lying things together, hitting people, and very similar to those Swiss Nazi camp commandants. And this is so typically Swiss, who can behave so innocent and neutral, only to behave like the worst possible predator at another time and place. They're absolutely schizophrenic and split personalities. So, our Swiss Christian Wert, Christian the Terrible, was also a policeman, and the very thing Swissy loves to do. Now taken over, the US police gunning down black people at sight, with currently 1 million Swiss Americans on all key positions in the USA. And in fact the entire European police force of all occupied territories collaborated with the Nazis. Apparently a police speciality. And they're all Swiss sleep agents, I tell you. This is Octagon. Watch this video. The entire international Blue Army against humanity is Swiss Nazi Templar octagon with a lot of split personalities and schizophrenic psychopaths, you know, killing people and terrorizing people, etc. And when the Nazis come, they all collaborate with them. A bunch of incredible cowards. The Swiss Wirt's first mass murder job was in Grafeneck Castle of the always involved aristocracy again, and located in Gomading, very near to the Swiss border in ethnic Swiss territory, where he gassed people for the T4 operation, for his Swiss boss, the SS Reichsminister, nicknamed the Swiss sadist Dr. Leonardo Conti. The name of the castle, Grafeneck, refers to the word Graf, a count, and Eck, meaning a canton in Latin, or place where the counts are to be found. Grafeneck. So here you can see it's a castle here. Again, yeah. And here it says the Dukes of it was in Gomading, and if we click on it, so they were the Dukes of, here it says the Dukes of Württemberg in Baden-Württemberg, you see. So if I click on Gomading, there, so it's all the way down in the south of Germany here. And here was Günzburg and all the other places I showed you. It's all in Swissy country, it is. And I saw this too at some, I showed it before at the Ernst Rudin film. This very same thing in some coat of arms of some Swiss aristocrats in my film about Ernst Rudin, if I remember that well. So here's Switzerland. You know? So this is all the Swiss buffer zone. I'll explain that to you. And it says again, the even if you put Gomadingen in it, you know, in the Wikipedia, it says immediately Grafeneck Euthanasia Center. It's so famous, you know. I've already explained in my other films like Auschwitz Made in Switzerland and several other videos what exactly is an ethnic Swiss. But I'll do a short re-explanation for the ones who have not seen the specific documentaries concerning the issue yet. So here is Switzerland, and here's the entire big Swiss empire, like this, with the buffer zone with it. This is Alemannic, this is Alsace, this is Baden-Württemberg, Bavaria, with Günzburg here. With a big chunk of Bavaria is Alemannic. Vorarlberg here is Alemannic, and here in Italy they are the richest parts of Europe. They are all Swiss living here. The Swiss are an Alemannic tribe mixed with Pharaoh due to the aristocratic Prime Noctis, the first right, and around Switzerland they have an Alemannic buffer zone for full protection of the motherland, also called the Alpenfestung. There is the Alemannic south of Germany called Baden-Württemberg, and the adjacent parts of Bavaria, the northeast of France called Alsace, the west of Austria called Vorarlberg, and the north of Italy, which are in fact parts of Switzerland inside Germany, France, Austria and Italy, entirely surrounding Switzerland as a first ring of defense, which was and still is a very strong strategic principle, defending the base of all evil in the Alps, octagon. So here you can see it all around, you know, and they want to create the big Swiss empire, which it in fact has already been all this time. Therefore, the regions in the buffer zone are by far the richest provinces in Germany, France, Austria and Italy, at an almost Swiss level of accumulated wealth, and a surplus of employment opportunities. How was the buffer zone constructed? Switzerland was founded by the Templars in 1291. See videos The Pharaoh Show and the Teutonic Knights, Deutsche Ritter on. And since that moment, the whole of Europe got ransacked by hundreds of thousands of the horrendous Swiss mercenaries, as the, at the time, huge Pope Swiss Guard, burning good European women at the stakes and creating Lebensraum, or living space, for the Swiss buffer zone. Just like the Einsatzgruppen did in the Second World War, creating living space, a buffer, Lebensraum. So, you know, for those people who don't like the Jews and say, you know, well, I don't care what happened to them, here you can see, I mean, the Swiss have done the same thing to the Europeans. So maybe in this respect you care. And they did the same thing to the Germans and in France, all over. So maybe now you care, because they did it to us as well, you see. And they're going to do it again. Now they're going to do it against the Americans. And especially during the 30-year War from 1618 to 1648, hundreds of thousands of Swiss mercenaries crawled over Europe, just like the Einsatzgruppen of World War II, and literally emptying entire regions, like 95% of the Alsatian population murdered and replaced by Swissy, and about 2/3 of the entire German population, 20 million Germans and their children, eradicated for the Swiss buffer zone, creating a nest for the future Nazi war criminals by the Horus Matrix of the Sisters of ISIS, who all came out of Switzerland or the Swiss buffer zone, like the Swiss Christian the Terrible, responsible for 2 million exterminated Jews and their children, just as Swissy did before with the Europeans, exterminating them by the millions. So you can see the rest of the article of that German newspaper. This is what's going on now. This is very important to understand. Very, very important. That these people actually who want to join Switzerland now, that they are Swiss. Only last year, 2014, they even discussed the possibility of a huge Swiss empire, including all the ethnic Swiss. Well, why else including the buffer zone around Switzerland if they weren't Swiss like the rest of these thugs? Believe me folks, it's not the Jews being the enemy within, it's only those of pharaonic aristocratic origin like Kissinger, Sarkozy, Larry Silverstein, who are in fact the false Jews described in the Bible. See my video Pharaistocracy. And it's those Swiss Nazi Templars, their Octagon military wing, now having taken over the USA through Operation Paperclip, gunning down black people in the streets, hoping for a black versus white escalation. See my video Swiss Sleeper Agents in USA. And so I show you, this was in Die Zeit, a German magazine last year, about the great Swiss empire being created right now. So I ran this through the Google Translator. It's weird English. I myself am not a Jew, as Swiss disinfo agents are spreading their disinfo and lies about me. And I ain't so neither by blood nor by religion. And I would tell you so if I was. I just don't want you to miss out the real enemy of mankind, which would be absolutely fatal at this stage under the current critical situation. I'm just a tiny South African historian with a Viking name, meaning a horse for hras, my last name, still in use in today's Icelandic. Behold the wrath of the Viking ancestors, Swissy, you traitor of the European race. Defining the enemy through historical similarities, eliminating the unknown factor in a mathematical way. And I will tell you exactly what ISIS Islamic State is. The whole world and every government is ruled by Pharaoh, who installed their base in the Alps, Switzerland, through the prime noctis or gangbang rape by the aristocracy. Pharaoh's aristocracy, that is. Then, all over Europe they had easy play because of the all-over white race appearance of the Swiss and the European victims. But how do you install a white pharaonic Swiss over a black population in Africa without arousing suspicion and revolts? Well, at first the white pharaonic colonizers ruled over black Africa. Then they mixed with the black people, making little brown children, of whom the brown girls, who were raised in a white way, later on mixed with black men, again making much blacker babies, but totally white inside, being in fact the superior class of white Negroes, black outside, white inside, to rule over Africa, which Pharaoh had already done the same with the Europeans. And since Octagon has been waging war against Islam since the First Gulf War of 1991 at least, which is 24 years, the time of one generation of ISIS leaders produced with all these Arab women kidnapped and gone missing in Iraq, being used for the livestock, creating Arab-looking white inside ISIS leaders, just as the Nazis had their Lebensborn baby factories and the Taliban in Afghanistan suddenly popped up after 22 years of war from 1979 to 2001. Enough time for one generation of Taliban killers, or the Nazis, from 1918 to 1939, having 21 years, and again one generation for the Hitler Youth and the SS killers. It's all the same every time. When writing Isis, the goddess in Demotic Pharaonic, the Egyptians only used consonants like in Hebrew or Arabic, thus making the Nazi SS standing for Isis, only the consonants, SS. An SS with Freemason skull and bones, thus Germans fighting for Pharaoh and their base in the Alps. With Nazi SS for ISIS and Islamic State for ISIS and the Horus Matrix. ISIS again and always ISIS, ISIS. Like Suis Sœurs d'Isis, the sisters of ISIS of the Alps. ISIS now is the same, who try to attract young and honest Muslim men from Europe and elsewhere to take their orders and do the fighting, assassinations and terror attacks for them. And ISIS, the Taliban and the Nazis are one and the same thing, bred out of the same pharaonic Horus Matrix livestock technique, with their base Octagon, Switzerland, where all the money flows down the mountains like rivers of gold into the chosen directions. Let's have a look at the logo of the Swiss telecommunications in the base of Pharaoh. First of all, the company is a real conglomerate, immense powerful, with a surplus of wealth and finance, making them possible to speculate and invest worldwide, just as a Swiss bank. And they probably belong to the Swiss Templar banks, the Swiss Nazi Templar banks, to whom in fact all banks worldwide belong to, as they were the first banks at all. When Octagon of the Alps got founded on August 1st, 1291, and the Templars' treasure came to the safety of the red and white United Kingdom of Pharaoh. And then They went viral and expanded worldwide. And in that Swisscom logo there are the three colors of the three crowns. The white royal house of Perhat of Upper Egypt in the middle, and the red house of Pertasser of Lower Egypt around, and showing the same waves as on the crowns themselves. So there's absolutely no doubt about that. Switzerland is Pharaoh's base anyway, you know. So here, even the waves here, you see on the red crown here, of the Pertasser, or also called the red house, like a red royal house, which I explain in this video here on my other channel. Even these waves here you can find them in the Swisscom logo, and it's being seen from the top, you see, from here. So it's the red around and the white in the middle, you know. And then it also, and this is the White House, as the White House in the United States. This is where the White House is from, actually. It's all pharaonic, you know. And the White House, that's Akhenaten, you know. If you look at the Obama, well, he looks like Akhenaten. Well, that's in the south. That's Upper Egypt in the south of Egypt. And there were two kingdoms, and they had strife amongst each other, and they just got together and they made the United Kingdom. And out of that, the two colors of the Swiss flag. Well, I show it all in this video. And then in the Swisscom logo, there's the war crown. Now, showing face down. All the elements are there, and I'll explain it to you. So here you can see it. The red and the white crown is seen from above, and the white crown in the middle. Even these waves are in it, which you can see on the red crown. And here's the blue crown, which is facing down, the war crown. So white and red are shown from the top of the crowns, and blue shows the blue war crown from the side facing down. Then why that blue war crown in an apparent peaceful affair of telecommunications? Well, I learned in military school that the two most important things in an army and in a war are logistics and even more the signalers. Called the Signal Corps in the US Army, or the Royal Corps of Signals in the British Army. Because without proper signalers or today's telecommunications, the chain of command can't pass down Pharaoh's order, like in that pharaonic red and white chessboard without the hand connecting the brain with the pieces. This is how in history small armies defeated huge armies 10 times as big, because it's better to have twice the signaler power and half the gun power than the other way around, and for logistics the same thing. Being also the very reason that the Germans lost the Battle of Stalingrad, because they merely replaced proper logistics with pillaging and stealing from the local population what could be found to eat. Which is called in proper terms a parasite army. Well, no wonder, because the Swiss were in command with their 17th century 30-year war mercenary tradition and apparent experience, commanding Hitler, who never listened to his own generals because he got his orders from the Swiss generals. Only modern armies don't work that way anymore, eh, Swissy? Even with your Swiss blitzkrieg. Soldiers need chow, otherwise they stick their hands up when smelling the enemy's kitchen down the lines. This is in fact, in military terms concerning the setup of an army only, the biggest difference between the American army of World War II and the German Nazi army. The Americans brought food and logistics to their own soldiers, and even to their enemies when defeated. whereas the Germans under Swiss Octagon command just robbed it where they could, leaving starvation to millions, even stealing the milk for the babies. Wasting all their logistics on Holocaust trains and bringing gold and art collections into the motherland in the Alps instead of feeding their own soldiers. But this was all planned by the Swiss mastermind and their Templar Octagon idea of Middle-Age warfare based upon pillaging armies. And for proper logistics you need an excellent signal corps. Therefore Pharaoh's blue war crown in the Swisscom logo. Here you can even see the Templars coat of arms a bit simplified. It is a coat of arms. You can all see it. There's neither strategy nor tactical retreats if you have no proper signal corps. I mean, what's a microscopic virus without that incredible fast intel of where to attack and destroy an entire organism billions of times bigger? And neither you want your own military company destroyed by your own friendly fire, which in army slang we call a blue on blue. Huh. Well, why blue when everybody is dressed up in green? Well, a blue on blue represents Pharaoh's blue war crown attacked by the same blue war crown. That's a blue on blue. But only few among the top brass heads yet know this. Only the blue-blooders, in fact. And there she was yesterday, June 23rd, 2015 in Germany, wearing the blue war crown, coming to discuss the Russia crisis with her own crowds, meaning war is imminent now, signaling the blue war crown to all Pharaoh's blue-blooders. And do I have to tell you again what the checkerboard red and white flowers mean of Pharaoh's United Kingdom? You really want to explain me that to you? And then the red carpet, meaning setting foot on the territory of the Red House of Per Tasser of Lower Egypt by the royal bloodline of the White House Per Het, symbolizing their welcome. When Roman armies under Pharaoh's command conquered northern Europe, installing Pharaoh's aristocracy all over, their code was to say being blue-blooded, meaning to be part of the invading armies of the blue war crown, subjecting Europe and the Europeans. And of course an important part of their signaling during their crusade over Europe were all the secret symbols carved in stone or at the front of their houses only. As I've shown you in my videos, the Pharaoh Show and Octagon, the Empire of Darkness. And most of that has now been replaced by telecommunications, and therefore the blue crown of war in the Swisscom logo represents the war on Europe and in fact on all peoples of this planet. Except the Swiss, of course. Here it says their main center is in Worplauven. That's just around the corner from where we are here in Bern. And you see, it shows, you know, they want us to show like radio waves, but it isn't. It's the Freemason Vesicapaiches forming the oval, like in the Oval Office, where the White House crown is of Upper Egypt. And this is, of course, this is a part of a chain, meaning, you know, the all rings, as in the Guinness logo, meaning we form a chain and we're always together standing behind each other, you know, all for one and one for all, as in the Swiss Parliament. And you, stupid Europeans and stupid mankind, you will be always standing alone. The entire Tunisia attack is more related to Swiss Nazis, Swiss FIFA, Swiss Islamofascism, Swiss banks, Swiss chemical factories Zurich, Switzerland and football than it is to Islam and jihad, as it has come out now that the attacker was high on amphetamines from a product called phenethylline, also sold as captagon, like octagon, widely used in the Syrian war and apparently by ISIS, but highly forbidden by Al-Qaeda, as all drugs are forbidden in Islam. And here we can see again the link with Nazism, octagon, and the Swiss mastermind behind Nazism, as all German soldiers were high on amphetamines during using pervitin, which they called Panzerschokolade or tank chocolate, which made them absolutely ruthless, merciless killers with their parasite army without proper logistics, bringing no food to the German soldiers. So they could hang on with pervitin amphetamines coming from the house of Pharaoh with the word per in pervitin in it, of the per a, per het or per tasser. And both the Nazis and ISIS were and are financed by the Swiss and their financial crime institutions. And again, instead of the jihadi Islam connection, we can see yet another link with football, as this Captagon product is being used by some professional soccer players. Or if you dig into it, at the end of the line it will probably appear that the producing factory, being a daughter company of Swiss Novartis, the Swiss chemical giant, and probably biggest manufacturer in the world of psychopharmaca. So when Octagon dropped him off at the beach, the Tunisia beach killer I mean, they probably had him drink a soda with amphetamines in it without him knowing, saying the beach was full of British soldiers on a holiday from the war against Islam, which might have been partly true though. So here it says Captagon, it's like octagon, Captagon, it's the same. And every time, so here are those Captagon pills, or Captagon, if you would pronounce it in English. And here it says Captagon, the trademark for the synthetic stimulant phenethylline. You know, phenethylline, Captagon, pervitin, it's all the same. Just as the church killer a couple of weeks ago in America, he was on drugs as well, apparently. Every time these guys who killed people randomly somewhere, every time they are on drugs. So through the amphetamines, pervitin, Captagon, phenethylline, in wars we can see there's definitely a link between ISIS, the Nazis and Islamofascism, through the same mastermind behind giving the soldiers the very same drug, which turns them into ruthless assassins, as the enemy within has made good experiences with the drug in World War II. The same techniques, the same modus operandi, by the same mastermind behind the screens. And here it says again, there's the relation between phenethylline, it says, or Captagon, phenethylline. It was used by football players. Here it says football players. So again, you know, the racial profiling on Tunisia's soccer player, the national hero of Tunisia. The attacker was a football fan. This drug was used by soccer players. So again, there's a relation with football all the time. And this drug is forbidden by Al-Qaeda. So there's no relation with jihadists really. Here it says, with the exception of Al-Qaeda linked groups which mostly hold to a strict interpretation of Islamic law. So Al-Qaeda and all these, they are the ones, the real Muslims, they don't use these drugs. And of course Al-Qaeda was was founded by this by this, I might say, a saint. Bin Laden was a saint. He stopped the drug trafficking and drugs production of opium in Afghanistan. It dropped from 90% to zero, absolutely zero, and that went immediately up again in 2000 and when the Americans came in after 9/11 in 2011. So there's a very big difference between Al-Qaeda and ISIS. It's completely opposite. Al-Qaeda does not like drugs. They forbid drugs. And that's a big difference. I think it's very important to understand who is who, of which I explain more. And these drugs, in fact, are part of the transhumanism agenda, reshaping man away from God's creation and therefore a devilish sin, and against the will of Allah. Satanic techniques to make controllable assassins out of man and created by the forces of darkness from the Alps. I have to tell you, I'm not a religious person, but this transhumanism is very, very evil, and these drugs were given to the ISIS attackers. It's very evil. So concerning the evil in it, I totally agree. And I show this picture, the glory of God, because I know that the real Muslims, the real Al-Qaeda guys, this is the thing they're fighting against. They don't use this sort of things. They hate this. So there's something else behind it, I'm telling you. The Nazis, Switzerland, Octagon, the Nazi Templars, Pharaoh. Has nothing to do with Islam. And again, I'm not religious, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Christian. But it has nothing to do with people who believe in the creation or who believe in God. This is pure transhumanism. They want to replace mankind, the totality of nature, with Monsanto. They want to replace it. And they create chaos through wars. And this is what's happening. And their base is Switzerland, whenever ever happens anything. They're so neutral, clean and innocent, where all the money is. So go and watch this video here on this channel here, where I put all the facts together concerning the Tunisia attacks in a 2-hour video, a documentary. So all evidence leads to Switzerland and their Octagon Nazi Templars, the base of all evil. And as Swissy was so angry after the FIFA arrests ordered by the Americans on May 27th in Zurich, the very next day they threw the Tunisian national soccer hero to the ground. Also in Zurich, every time in Zurich, Hitler in Zurich, always in Zurich, Oprah Winfrey in Zurich, because Octagon's target from the beginning has been Tunisia. There's absolutely no proof at all that the Tunisia beach gunner was a jihadist, ISIS or Al-Qaeda Muslim. But it is a fact that Saifeddin Rezgui was a soccer fan. There's no jihadist goodbye video, no ISIS flags or Quran texts in his pockets, nothing whatsoever. It says he supported Real Madrid. And here too, Real Madrid. He liked break dancing. And so this was in the newspaper. He enjoyed all the trappings of Western society. He was a supporter of Real Madrid. So this guy, he got really very, very upset when the Swiss Nazi police racial profiled and humiliated the Tunisian national soccer hero. Here's some pictures of him from the newspaper. And here it says Sus. Well, that sounds like Swiss. You know, the French word for Switzerland, what the Templars for Sir disease, how they pronounce Switzerland in the beginning. And well, this is not bad. He wrote, "The heroes are all in their graves, the real men in prisons and the traitors in the palace." I agree with that. That's quite good, eh? And I'll come back to this later. This is completely Photoshop. Here it says, he was a breakdancer and loved football. He loved football, it says in the newspaper. Well, maybe he had some contacts in the mosque, but the humiliation in Switzerland only 6 days before, that was the thing that really it was really the last drop. It really made him do what he did. And he was a sweet boy when he was younger, so he was a sensitive guy. You know, he was sensitive, and he couldn't take it. What happened? You know, how an Arab was again humiliated, again and again and again. So this was really the Swiss racial profiling of their Tunisian hero, national hero, Yassine Chekahoui, that really tipped him over into what happened. But of course Switzerland is clean, you know, they never done something wrong, you know, etc, etc. There's no newspaper will ever write something bad about Switzerland. So even if he was, like, you know, influenced by more jihadists like Muslims, there was this thing that happened in Switzerland that made him tip over. That really flipped him out. It says he described him as good. He was never in problem with anybody else. It was a sensitive guy. He just couldn't take it anymore, what Swissy did. This is what I've been telling you all the time. Even the newspapers say it. He was a soccer fan. Wakey wakey. And the Swiss knew exactly what they were doing. They knew the consequences. The Swiss banks and Octagon, they want war. Like the other Second World War and the First World War, they just want people to fight each other. And then blame it on the Muslims. And I say, no, 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 no. This is not okay. It's not the truth. Let's forget about the war on Islam propaganda and look at the facts only. It is for fact that he was a soccer fan. And it is no fact at all that he was an ISIS jihadi. On the contrary. Here it says, again, he was a Real Madrid, that's the Spanish soccer team, the best one in Spain, a loving break dancer who became brainwashed by extremism, well, you might add, and triggered by Switzerland, by the Swiss Octagon Nazis. And if I scroll it down here, look, there's some more. Even the newspapers say it, you know. Here's again. He was a football-loving young man. And sensitive guy. He just got fed up with it all. Again, a Muslim humiliated. And again, here again, he was posting about Real Madrid and the Tunisian national football team. And who's the captain of the Tunisian national football team? Well, that's Yassine Chekahoui. That's the guy who got incredibly harsh, humiliated by the Swiss only 6 days before. So this guy knew about it. He probably even saw my video in which I talk about this and what happened. And the Swiss triggered him, believe me. There's no proof that this guy was a jihadi. Yes, again, he was a break dancer and loved football. And he was good. Oh, there he is. It was the end of his football dreams. The Swiss triggered him. He knew about, 11 million Tunisians knew what the Swiss had done to their national hero, and he was part of that. So investigate it, you know. The authorities should have investigated how many, all these Tunisians knowing about this. I mean, we're living in a time, and especially the Muslims, that doesn't need very much, and the Swiss know it. Many Arabs have just had enough, and it doesn't need any more. It's all over the world, you know. Well. And in the minutes after the shooting, the media instantly present us a picture of the young man with assault rifles, which is either a Photoshop with replica guns or a young kid posing with 2 replica AKs. How do I know this? Well, first of all, the light intensity on the guns is not the same lumen as on the kid. And he looks like he's had a couple of beers on a party and do what kids do all over the world and post a selfie, and for an Arab kid, more likely identifying himself with a Kalashnikov rifle. How do I know they're replica pellet airsoft guns? Well, first of all, at first sight, not even an expert can tell the difference from a real weapon. And in most countries, any 10-year-old can buy them legally in a shop. The AK on the left looks like an AK-47, and the one on the right looks like a AK-74, the newer version with the lighter bullets, like someone collecting different models. Neither one of the guns has a single scratch nor worn out marks, and not even the mags that are first to wear out. And the mags definitely look plastic, new and replica. Yeah, look at it. There's not a single scratch on the mags. It's all new. It's all replica. These are soft air guns. It's not real. This one too. There's not a scratch on it. You see, and the guy has more light than the light on the guns. You know. It would be more shining here where the light is coming on the gun here. So this part, you know, it's not true. And this is the AK-47, the 7.62 bullets, and this is the new lighter, almost like 223 Remington, but not entirely the same. This has a huge stopping power, the AK-47. This has no stopping power. And I know how worn out jihadi guns look like, as I spent 1 year in Afghanistan in 1985. And I'm neither a Muslim nor a Russian. These guys know throw their guns on the ground, lying in the dust and sand when praying, don't clean their guns, and on many occasions don't even carry them, but drag them behind. From what I saw, they were just so busy praying and drinking tea the whole day, they didn't even have the time to clean their guns. A prayer session was always prepared with grouping together and drinking tea. The same thing after the prayer, as an entire social event knitted around it 5 times a day, and incredibly time-consuming. I mean, I don't mind basically. Anyone is free to do whatever he likes within the reasonable limits. But it's very hard to fight the Russian army with these guys. Oh, thank God the Russians were doing the same thing, praying to their vodka bottles. So you can imagine what a jihadi gun looks like. And with Tunisia's strict gun laws, you will not be able to purchase a new Kalashnikov only some old Gaddafi army used ones from over the nearest border with Libya. So the guns picture is a total hoax for the anti-Islamic agenda and wars against other peoples. So here you can see a picture of some guns who were confiscated this year in Paris from a guy who apparently wanted to blow up a church. Look at how rusty the magazines are, and this is not even in the desert, you know, or in Paris. Look at it, how rusty it is, and here how it's worn out. Here rusty, here's rusty, the gun is rusty. These things rust, you know, if you don't oil them. Here it's all metal shining through, you know. The other guns, they look new. It's plastic, you know. It doesn't shine with all the light the guy is having on his face, and the guns don't shine like here. Look, here it shines, you see. These are metal mags, a real Kalashnikov mags, and they're rusty. You know, you can imagine the state of a mag in Tunisia or in Afghanistan, or you know, coming out of Libya's army, and all the things this gun must have seen, you know, the rough life. So the picture is an entire complete hoax. I tell you, they're plastic guns. These are real guns. It's rusty and it's shiny and it's worn out. The other ones, it's a hoax. I tell you, the Swiss Nazi Templar Octagon also has Muslim Arab members, an alliance from the days of the Crusades, but also through the Swiss great eminences François Genoux and Ahmet Huber al-Swisri. Here you can see them. And the Al-Taqwa Bank. And when the IRS in 2008 started to put pressure on the Swiss banks, Swissy applied for a banking license in Wahhabi Qatar, who said, well, okay, but we want to have the World Soccer Championships 2022 in return, to create a lot of black money selling alcohol to British hooligans in an alcohol-restricted Muslim country, like the mafia making a fortune during the prohibition bootlegging in the 20s. Thus gaining more funds for Octagon, financing ISIS, who think they're fighting for Islam, like the equally Swiss-funded Nazis making the Germans think to fight for Germania. So here you can see them. I already made a video about them. And this guy, I met him once. He threatened me. He came, he forced himself into our house because of a newspaper article I wrote. And very dangerous man. He was together with the first time with 4 other men, the second time with 5 other men, and the 6th guy was an Arab. And this I've been telling this since 2001. And I recently found out that it was him, you know. Well, they're both dead, and you're personal friends of Adolf Hitler. So, you know, you see, the Al-Taqwa Bank is tied to Nazi supporters. So the Nazi Templars of Octagon, they are in it. And the Al-Taqwa Bank, it was founded even in Switzerland. It says somewhere in the article, wait a minute. So here's part of the article. It says, the Al-Taqwa Bank is founded in Switzerland. They are the ones behind it. And that's why they triggered the beach shooter, and through the racial profiling of their national hero, Yasin Chekahoui, who is of course innocent in all of this. He has nothing to do with it. But it's the Swiss, I tell you, they're always behind it. The Swiss are always in it. They always are, and making lots of money out of it. Believe me. I already explained to you in some of my other videos how Swiss Nazis are involved in the Islamofascism at the highest levels. And you just saw it again. The article I just showed you, where really Nazis behind the screens are behind it, you know, triggering and financing it all, just as the Swiss Nazi police here. And this came out like 6 days before the attacks. So you can imagine how this young guy and 11 million Tunisians felt when they saw their hero, national hero, like lying on the ground like here. And well, the Swiss knew exactly what the consequences would be. So when the Swiss Nazi police racially profiled the Tunisian soccer hero Yassine Chekahoui, the Octagon just had to eavesdrop their antennas out in Tunisia and find themselves one of the very angry Tunisians because of their national hero so humiliated in Zurich. And they found that unemployed, frustrated, angry, breakdancing Tunisian soccer fan to revenge his football hero, provided him the hardware and probably some money for his family, and dropped him off at the local beach. Most likely promising him a getaway car for a safe exfiltration after the action, and a comfortable future in the wealthy Emirates. And this is why the attacker, he seemingly aimlessly headed for the streets, as if he was waiting for something or someone, instead of continually sweeping the beaches in order to make more victims. You can see him walking around like he's waiting for something, you know. Well, the getaway car, the promises didn't get fulfilled, you know. No getaway car. So he knew that was it. So May 27th, 2015, the US-led arrests concerning the FIFA corruption, soccer corruption in Zurich, Switzerland, took place. Right the next day, Tunisia's soccer player Yassine Chekahoui got racially profiled by the Swiss Nazi police. Anyone thinks it's a coincidence? Well, let me tell you, there are no coincidences in Switzerland. And all this is related to 40 dead on an Arab beach and Swiss Nazi banking FIFA jihadi corruption in the base of all evil, Octagon, in the Alps. And now they can blame Islam and the Arabs for it, demolish their tourist industry to create more jobless, desperate potential fighters for the political agenda, with Swiss banks getting filthy rich and Octagon consolidating their total control, worldwide blue army to control humanity. Recently it showed in the newspapers how the Swiss Nazi people are spreading fear for other races and other people, spreading hatred and ethnophobia by integrating the Native American First Nations into their Swiss racist hate campaigns by depicting caricatures of stereotype Indians with degrading texts like "The Indians couldn't stop the immigration. Today they live in reserves." Now, wait a minute. Weren't the immigrants the Swiss themselves, with currently 1 million Swiss Americans in the USA? With Swiss General Custer called the Squaw Killer, and Swissy himself squeezing the First Nations into reserves? What a bunch of evil liars the Swiss are, twisting the truth for our eyes, being the disinfo agents, just as Swissy disinfo and their evil Nazi tongues spread their neutrality swindle and that nobody got hurt in the concentration camps with Swissy lie that gas chambers never existed in the extermination camps. And as usual, Swissy initiates the lie. Then Austrian and German Nazis copycat, as doing so with this scandalous anti-Native American propaganda, with Swissy perpetrator as usual and always slipping into the victim's role after. While it was them in the first place, chasing and terrorizing the Indians. Oh, what a bunch of dumb liars. This is the sick Swiss direct democracy. or should I say direct idiocracy. You can see it, the internet is full of it, you know. If you put this sentence here, die Indianer konnten die Einwanderung nicht stoppen, heute leben sie in Reservaten. The Indians couldn't stop the immigration, so today they live in reserves. So if you punch this in the internet, it pops out, you know, page after page after page. And this is by the Swiss Nazis, initiated by the Swiss Nazis, taken over by the German and the Austrian Nazis. And nobody does a thing against it, you know, they just go on and go on and go on, just stalling time, lying to other countries and say, yeah, we Swiss are neutral, yes, we Swiss authorities, we do something against it. And no, they're never going to do something against it, and it goes on and it goes on. You know, it's like an avalanche. You know, very dangerous, very, very dangerous. Stop the Swiss Nazi people. So you can read the entire article. Excuse Google for the translation, but at least it's something. So here in the beginning. You can read it. You know, the Indians couldn't stop the immigration. Today they live in reserves. And the immigration, that was the Swiss and the Germans and the Austrians, who are now using it. You know, this is Nazi idiocracy. The Nazis have always been a bunch of liars, and it's all initiated from Switzerland, which it even says here in the article as well, you know. Yeah, I'll look it up for you. So you can see that in the article they're doing it all. The Swiss started, and now they're doing it everywhere. In Tessin, in Lugano, they're doing it in here, the German-speaking countries, everywhere. A right-wing nationalist, Austrian Freedom Party, FPÖ, NPD. The Swiss started. It's the same with those, you know, white black sheep being kicked by 3 white sheep, and it's been taken over all over into Russia, everywhere, and nobody's doing a thing, you know. Here it says it's as well, you know. And here it says one more time here by the NPD, we know that the Indian people couldn't stop the immigrants. Well, the immigrants were Germans. It was them, it was the NPD. And so now they live in reserves. They mean reservations. Well, it's a Google translation. We know that the Indian people couldn't stop the immigrants, now they live in reserves. That's the text we just saw with the stereotype Indian, you know. So that before, you know, they killed the Indians, and now they use the Indians for their own, I don't know what, you know. This is very dangerous. It always comes from Switzerland. Every time. They started, they finance Hitler, and the others follow up and copycat the Nazi stuff, and then we have to pay for it, eh? Yeah, I put this in the Google Translator. Yeah, it's fabulous. Even the Swiss patriots, fascists and Nazis, I can run through the Google Translator. You see the Swiss cross here, it says patriot with the pyramid, you know. Here's Swiss cross, well, all their coats of arms, you know, of the Swiss mercenaries. It says the Indians couldn't stop the immigrants. They now live in reserves. It's all over. Now there they come again, all the Indians. Yeah, patriots, Swiss patriots. You can buy a pin, you know, stick it on your breast. The Swiss flowers, as the Nazis used. Oh, isn't it charming? It's all over. The Nazis are using the Indians. You know, The Indians are all wasted, you know, they're like gone. And now the whiteys, they call themselves, look at it. They replaced the Indians, so now they call them the White Indians. The Swiss are the White Indians. Well, what do you know? they feel themselves as White Indians. Well, I told you about the, you know, how they do it with the white nigger. Excuse my expression. You know, they as they did with the Korean dictator. You know, he's a Swiss inside eating cheese, and outside he's Korean. You know. He's a white Korean, and they do the same with Africans. And now I just saw it. They do it with Indians too, white Indians. The Chinese call them bananas, you know, white inside and yellow outside. Oh man, it's disgusting, really. I mean, take care, folks. It's nobody's doing something. Be aware, my Indian brothers, my Native American brothers, the Swissy even has a website called White Indians. They've replaced you. They are amongst you, like everywhere else. It says CH, this is in Switzerland. CH means Confederatia Helvetia. It's Swiss. There's even an address. I didn't show it now, but there's everything. An address, a telephone number. Be aware, my Native American brothers. Homitakuyase.